At 2:59 a.m. local time, over Belgorod, Russia, a 13,200-pound FP-5 Flamingo cruise missile is in a terminal dive, screaming toward the Earth at Mach 0.8. Its target is the Skiff-M factory, a facility worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If this warhead connects, it wipes out 70% of the tooling for Russia's Su-57 fighter program. But if it misses by even 15 meters, the reinforced concrete roof holds. And Ukraine just handed the Russians their secret frequency hopping technology for free. The margin for error is zero. This movement actually began 47 minutes earlier in a frozen forest 40 kilometers across the border. A specialized trailer crew was about to gamble their lives on a launch window that shouldn't mathematically exist. At that moment, the world was fixated 1,800 miles north on Russia's aggressive Arctic maneuvers. Zelensky had even bluffed a warning about striking their northern fleet, but it was a strategic feint. While the Kremlin was busy posturing around Greenland, Ukrainian intelligence had selected a target much closer to home. The Skiff plant in Belgorod is the beating heart of the Russian aerospace industry. Inside its walls, high-precision German CNC machines produce the specialized titanium and composite wing spars. These components keep the Su-57 Felon, Su-35, and Su-34 jets in the air. The Russians know the physics and they feel secure, but they are about to learn a very expensive lesson. The operators in Ukraine initiate the firing sequence. 47 minutes on the clock. The hunt is on. At 2:14 a.m., the frozen silence outside Kharkiv is shattered. The solid propellant boosters on 4 FP-5 Flamingos ignite with enough thrust to lift a double-decker bus. The airframes are subjected to 4 Gs of acceleration as they transition to cruise flight. But physics demands a price for that speed. The launch creates a thermal bloom visible from space. High above, a Russian Orlan 10 reconnaissance drone instantly tags the heat spike. The data screams across the Russian network to a counter battery unit 55 kilometers away. The Russian reaction time is terrifyingly efficient. Within 90 seconds, they have a firing solution. A Mach 6 Iskander ballistic missile is now hurtling toward the Ukrainian launch site. This should be a suicide mission. But the Ukrainian crew isn't waiting around to die. They execute a shoot-and-scoot maneuver that would make a Formula One pit crew jealous. Before the smoke even clears, the heavy transporter is doing 65 kilometers per hour down a logging road. Behind them, they leave a cluster of magnesium flares burning on the ground. These mimic the residual heat of a stationary launcher. The Iskander warhead slams into the empty clearing, turning an acre of dirt and pine trees into a crater worth $3 million. The crew is safe. The Flamingos are airborne, arcing wide to use the urban radar clutter of Belgorod as a digital shield. At 2:22 a.m., the air defense network surrounding the Skiff-M factory wakes up. The phased array of a 9.2 N6E gravestone radar begins spinning, sweeping the horizon for threats. Suddenly, the screens in the Russian command center light up like a Christmas tree. Multiple contacts, low altitude, slow speed. It isn't just 4 missiles, it is a swarm of 60 targets. This is the Ghost Swarm. From camouflaged pickup trucks along the border, Ukraine has launched 55 cheap, expendable FPV drones. Fitted with Lundberg lenses, these $500 plastic drones look like B-52 bombers on a radar screen. The Russian commander screams, "Full alert, Pantsir engage. Activate Podlet K1 jamming." 2 Pantsir S1 units positioned near the factory swivel their turrets. Their radars lock onto the first 8 targets. 57 E-6 missiles scream off the rails, accelerating to Mach 3 in seconds. 12 decoys are vaporized in midair. It looks like a victory for Russia, but in economics, it is a disaster. Russia just spent $1.2 million in interceptors to destroy $6,000 worth of plastic and aluminium. On the ground, Rosvardia troops guarding Skiff-M are panic-firing AK-12s and launching Igla-S man-pads at anything that moves. They hit a decoy, which crashes 200 meters from the factory, burning innocuously. They cheer, thinking they have stopped the attack. They don't realize that while they are distracted, the 91N6E Big Bird long-range radar is detecting 40 more contacts. The system is overloading. Hidden behind this wall of digital noise, the 4 real flamingos are slipping through like sharks in a school of tuna. At 2:25 a.m., the situation for the Russian operators goes from bad to impossible. A second wave of 30 drones arrives from the east. These are equipped with cheap, AI-driven transmitters, executing frequency-hopping spread spectrum patterns. They change radio channels 1,500 times per second. It is like playing electronic whack-a-mole, except the mole moves at 160 kilometers per hour. The S-400's massive 92N6E radar, designed to track hypersonic missiles in the stratosphere, begins to stutter. The computer is trying to filter real targets from ghost signals against the background of civilian radio traffic. The system lag hits 3 seconds. In the world of supersonic interception, 3 seconds is an eternity. Desperate, the Russian commander orders the Pantsers to switch to their 30mm dual cannons. These guns spit out 5,000 rounds per minute, creating a wall of tungsten and high explosives. They shred 15 drones in seconds, filling the sky with fire. But this is exactly what the Ukrainians wanted. The exploding lithium batteries and burning plastic create a massive thermal cloud. This hot fog blinds the infrared sensors of the backup aiming systems.
The missile rapidly corrects its trajectory.
While the Russians focus on the swarm, the 4 6-ton flamingos fly right underneath the engagement zone. They hug the terrain at just 30 meters altitude. They use the chaos above them as a ceiling of noise, slipping through the gap while the S-400 is busy. The missiles are now 19 kilometers out, and the door is wide open. At 2:27 a.m., the Russian defense network plays its final, terrifying card. The Russian electronic warfare commander authorizes the nuclear option of the radio spectrum. The R330ZH Zhitel and Podlet K1 jamming stations surge to maximum output. They flood the L1 and L2 GPS bands with broadband interference. In an instant, the entire satellite navigation grid over Belgorod ceases to exist. On the Ukrainian control screens 65 kilometers away, the telemetry for the 4 flamingos flatlines. The missiles are now flying blind at 800 kilometers per hour, just 30 meters off the deck. Without satellite guidance, the inertial navigation systems begin to drift. Flamingo 2 starts to bank left, its nose pointing toward an empty field. The mission hangs by a thread. But the Ukrainian engineers taught these missiles how to see. As the GPS signal dies, the Flamingo's onboard computer switches to Tercom and DSMAC. The missile has a high-resolution 3D map of the entire flight path stored on its hard drive. The sensor in the nose scans the ground, measuring every hill, river curve, and building shape. It compares what it sees to the map in its brain. You can jam a satellite signal, but you cannot jam the physical geography of the Earth. Flamingo 2 corrects its course with terrifying precision. But the danger isn't over. As the missiles pop up over the final ridge, the Pantsir's thermal cameras detect the heat bloom. 4 high-speed thermal contacts 6 kilometers out. The Pantsir commander has his finger on the button. He has a lock. This is where physics and insane bravery collide. Flamingo 3 and 4 execute a pre-programmed buddy maneuver. They bank hard and close the distance between them to just 6 meters. They are flying wingtip to wingtip at 800 kilometers per hour. To the confused Russian radar, 2 objects flying that close look like a single, large, tumbling return. The Russian operator hesitates. On his screen, it looks exactly like the debris field from the decoys he just shot down. He deselects the targets, thinking he is looking at wreckage. He is actually looking at 12 tons of death holding hands. By the time the thermal cameras resolve the 2 distinct plumes, they are inside the S-400's minimum engagement zone. Inside the SCIF-M factory, the night shift foreman is checking a titanium wing spar. He doesn't know that in 12 seconds, it will be vaporized. At 2:28 a.m. and 17 seconds, the 4 flamingos pop up from the tree line for their final attack. The chaotic radar return sharpens into a terrifyingly clear vector. "Hard kill!" the commander screams into the comms. But the S-400 is designed to kill targets hundreds of kilometers away. Right now, the target is 5 kilometers away and closing at 1,000 kilometers per hour. Moving a 20-ton turret takes time. Time they don't have. Inside the assembly hall, sparks are flying from a welding station. Workers are building the skeleton of Russia's air superiority, unaware their deadline has been cancelled. The Ukrainian operator, watching from 65 kilometers away, sees the image stabilize on the hall roof. He doesn't cheer, he just wipes a bead of sweat from his forehead. The air defense has failed. The jamming has failed. All that remains is the kinetic energy of 11 tons of explosives meeting Russian steel. At 2:59 a.m., the first Flamingo missile punches through the roof. The delayed action fuse allows the missile to smash through reinforced concrete like a bullet through drywall. For a split second, there's only the sound of tearing metal. Then, the 2,500-pound warhead detonates. The explosion creates an overpressure wave moving at 7,000 meters per second. It pulverizes the German-made CNC machines and twists precision engineering into unrecognizable art. The blast kicks up tons of titanium dust, igniting a fire that burns at over 2,700 degrees Celsius. When the automated sprinkler systems trigger, the water molecules rip apart into hydrogen and oxygen. The water becomes fuel. The factory explodes a second time from the inside out. The heart of Russia's fifth-generation fighter program collapses into a smoking crater. Ukraine spent $4 million on missiles to destroy $150 million in infrastructure. But the money is irrelevant. You can rebuild a roof in a month, but replacing sanctioned precision tooling takes a year. President Zelensky proved you don't need a navy to sink a fleet. You just need to burn down the factory that builds it. Putin forgot the most important lesson. The most dangerous water isn't the ocean. It's the leaked coolant on your own factory floor. Now, a tactical question for you. Will Russia pull their fleet back from the Arctic to defend their own borders? Or will they double down on the bluff to save face? Let me know your analysis in the comments below. Make sure to destroy that like button and subscribe. It helps the algorithm more than a GPS job. Bye for now.